until she stepped out of the room and then asked me what I identified as and if I was transgender and if I had a preference of liking girls or boys.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are Unapologetically Outspoken.
Hey everyone, and happy Wednesday. So we have a special guest. This episode's going to be a little bit different. We have my daughter, Alexis.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. So we wanted to bring Alexis on to get a teen's perspective just on like everything, because we hear a lot, especially in the media, where they make it sound like every young person is like, a they them or something and like, hates Trump and all these different things. So I thought it would be good to actually talk to someone who is young and like just see what they're thinking. I will say, I feel like she has a lot of common sense compared to some people her age. So there is that. She has a good head on her shoulders. But I figured we could start out by talking about something really scary that just happened the other day. Because I think this just goes to show how like screwed up things are right now, because this is an incident that happens like at least once a month. But I get a text message from her on Friday that her and a group of kids are hiding in a closet and there's an active shooter threat. And I don't know, I felt like this one was like way more scary than the typical
Yeah,
threats.
because most of them, like, they'll be like, oh, we're going on control campus, just stay in the class you're in, like, you don't have to barricade or anything because it's just a social media threat. But this one, actually weren't in a classroom when it started. We were doing this, like, assignment where we were, like, throwing paper airplanes to see how far they were going, and all of a sudden, the football coach comes running out and screaming at us, like, run as fast as you can, get in a classroom, like, there's a shooting threat, like, run, hide, get, like, whatever classroom is closest. So we just all start sprinting.
And
And
didn't he say like this is not a drill?
yeah, he was like, this is not a drill. And like me and the teacher, because I was standing right next to the teacher, we just like looked at each other and we were like, we gotta go. So we like started like running to this one classroom and we like went in this closet that like had a refrigerator. So we opened the refrigerator so that the metal was like blocking the door. And we all just like kind of like crouched down and we're sitting in there and we're all like freaking out because like you think what like you know what to do when that happens, especially with all like the drills, but like really you don't, like when
Yeah.
it actually happens.
So I just go ahead, Tara. Were you going to say something?
I just find this so disturbing because when you and I were going to school, we didn't have these drills. They weren't necessary. I never would have thought to let me barricade myself in this room and open the refrigerator door so that there's an additional metal barrier between me and the door. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Alexis, I'm sorry. Like this,
Yeah.
I feel bad for kids these days that you even have that mind frame.
Well, I remember when you were in kindergarten and like I didn't know that they did drills like that. And she was like, yeah, we had to go in the bathroom and like stand on the toilet seat so that way if a bad guy was here, he looked under the stall, he wouldn't like see us. And I'm like, oh my God. And that was in kindergarten. And like, I swear it's like every month there is a social media threat where someone will be like, oh, I'm gonna bring a bomb to school. But they pretty much like make it known like, hey, this is a threat, but we are going to investigate it. But this was like totally different. I mean, like I could sense her panic and she's texting me like there's a window in this closet and like we're barricading ourselves. And it's like, what am I going to do? I'm sitting here like, oh my God, my kid's in danger. What the hell am I going to do? So I just get in the car and go. And I was like still in my pajamas, didn't even think about it. And I pull up and like a cop was there blocking the entrance and he's like, we can't let anyone in or out. It's a controlled campus. And like by that time, other parents started showing up and the cops like, I'm sorry, but we can't let you guys in. And so then they like released you guys and said like, okay, the
Yeah.
threat's over.
So we were in that closet for I want to say maybe like 20 minutes or so. And we were all just kind of panicking because even like the teachers, like they have like a big group chat and they're all texting. Nobody knows what's going on. They're not informing any teachers of what's happening. They don't know if it's a shooting like threat, if there's like a bomb, but like we don't hear anything. We just hear teachers yelling at people to get in classrooms. So we don't hear anything. So we're like, okay, maybe it's just like a threat. So then they come on the announcements and they were like, okay, you guys are good to go. You can go to your next period. Like it's all fine. We're still having them investigate it, but it's fine. So we get up and we go, and everyone's like roaming the hallways trying to figure out what's going on. And we're like, why are they letting us like out when they're still investigating it? But anyway, my next class after that is lunch. So we all like my friends walking with me because we're like talking, trying to figure out what happened. And it was Jacob, and Jacob doesn't even have that lunch. And all of a sudden, we're right outside the cafeteria, and they start screaming at us. And on the announcements, there's like this alarm going off, and they're like, run in the nearest classroom, do not be outside, like run. So we run into the cafeteria right after they told us it was fine. So everyone sprints in the cafeteria, like everybody. So then we're like, well, shoot, like where do we go? Because everyone's in here, and like there's nothing else near the cafeteria to run to.
Yeah, it's like a separate
So
building.
so we're like all in there, and there's even like administrators trying to run into the cafeteria, and they're like trying to lock the doors. So then we're like trying to figure out like where can we hide, because like everyone's, some people are going to the bathrooms to hide. So we just kind of go like where the lunch line is, and we're just kind of like crouching down trying to figure out what happened, because they're telling us like get in a building but you don't need to hide. So then we're like, what do you mean we have to be inside of a building right now, but we're not, you don't want us hiding? So then we're just kind of like trying to like crouch down because we don't want to be like visible. And they're not like, keep in mind, they're not telling us what's going on or anything.
And they weren't like telling the parents anything. So like the way that I found out and then I was able to tell her was on like a Facebook group page for parents. Someone posted that a girl, like a dad or a stepdad, was going to pick up his daughter or stepdaughter, and she started screaming, he has a gun. And that's how the whole thing started. And that's like all I knew. And
And
then,
we still don't even know if that's the actual story, because one of the teachers I talked to, she said they haven't even told us what happened, so we don't know if that's fake or not.
yeah. And so, like, as I'm at the school and the cop won't let me or any of the other parents in, we see every cop from our county, like going crazy down the road. I mean, they're flying with their lights on. So then
Yeah.
I'm panicking, thinking, like, okay, well, there's got to be something, like, they are like actively, like, it was the scariest thing. And obviously she's fine, but we
Yeah.
still don't know the full story. We still have no
Okay.
idea.
I was going to say several days have gone by and you don't know what actually happened.
Yeah,
Like there's
we
No.
something
don't.
very wrong with that.
And this school will like literally text us if she's like late to a class. Like we get notifications on everything. Every time there's a lockdown, parents are immediately notified. There was like no communication, which tells me like
The
they didn't know, like no one knew what was going on.
Yeah, the only reason she knew was because I texted her and then the Facebook page, but keep in mind not all parents have Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyhow, the whole thing like freaked me out. And I've been talking about homeschool for a long time. And I'm like, maybe this is a sign that we
Yeah.
switched to homeschool, because that's the worst feeling in the world when your kid is like there and you can't do anything but wait.
Yeah, and when the cops were
Alexis,
pulling up, we were like in the cafeteria and the car lines along there, and there were like 20 cops in the car line.
Yeah.
what grade are you in? How old are you?
I'm a freshman.
Okay.
She's 14.
14.
Yeah, and then last year there was a bomb threat where we all had to evacuate too. There was a
Yeah.
lot of threats last year at the middle school.
I just think like the way things are now, it's just so different. And like they get these threats all the time, but then kids keep making the threats. So clearly, like
Right.
they're not, doing anything to like really discourage it. Like I don't think the kids are getting arrested or anything. But it's just like this is the reality that parents and kids are facing, like just going to school. You know what I mean? So there was that. But the other thing like that I really want to get your perspective on is how drastically, in my opinion, just watching as a parent, how drastically the opinions have changed with kids your age from 2020 during COVID to now. because I remember in 2020, like you were like nervous that people were going to find out that I voted for Trump. Do you remember that? Like
Yeah.
kids were getting like bullied big time if their parents, not even them, but if their parents were
Yeah.
Trump supporters.
So I was doing homeschool, and this was like beginning of middle school, so like sixth grade, and everyone's, kind of already in like their awkward stage and like scared of getting like bullied. And I was online in sixth grade, going back in seventh grade, and one of my like close friends, she had been going to school like regularly, and she was telling me, she was like, yeah, this one girl found out that like my parents voted for Trump and that I'm a Trump supporter, and they've been like bullying me like crazy, like they were threatening to come to my house and do this and that and blah blah blah, and they're like canceling, like they were calling it like canceling. They were like they're all canceling me and this and that, and like no one will sit with me at lunch.
And that was like middle school during
Mhm.
COVID. Like that's like the feel of everything. But now I feel like it's completely flip-flopped where
Yeah.
now it's like kids your age are like make fun of Biden. Like one
Yeah.
posted on the parents group like that they're calling Biden like Sleepy Joe,
Yeah.
and people will chant like
Yeah.
F
Like
Joe Biden or like let's go Brandon.
yeah, my whole school now, I feel like it's like there's very little kids who support Biden, and most of the kids that support Biden like are kind of like the awkward kids that don't really talk to anyone. And
Yeah, now it's like cool to have like Trump flags in your room.
yeah,
Like there's girls with like pink Trump flags like in their
Oh, I've
room
seen
and
those.
posting it on social media.
yeah, and even like people have brought Trump flags to school. Like we did a USA game, like a big football game, and everyone brought Trump flags and like tapestries with Trump's face on it and like Trump shirts.
So this like gives me hope because I feel like when you are like just listening to the media, they make it sound like every young person is like pro Biden. But I
Mhm.
don't really think that that's the case. I think there are young people that are, but I think the vast majority of people are now like, kind of realizing we don't want to be associated with all this stuff.
Yeah, and for a while, I thought it was like our school was like that just because, we're in Florida and Florida's very like Trump supporters. And, but my friend, she just moved back to Illinois, and even she said her school is like full of Trump supporters, which surprised me
Yeah,
because
she's in the Chicago
she's in the
area.
Chicago area.
That
And
was going to
she's
be
the
my
one that has the
question.
Trump flag like in her room.
Yeah, she's
That
she's
was
got them like all on her wall.
that was going to be my question because I thought, okay, you guys live in Florida, so it's a very red Trump supporting state. So you're ahead of the game, Alexis. You answered before I could even ask.
Yeah, and like all of my relatives that live, right outside of Chicago, they're like, we don't know how these people keep getting voted in because we wouldn't vote for the governor for Biden. So I think it's like very concentrated in the cities. Um, but then the other thing too is like the whole like trans thing, because that's another thing where it's like the media, it makes you think like every kid is like a they them or something,
Mhm.
and that's not the case either,
No.
right? So it's not really this like cool thing or open thing in your school anyhow.
Yeah, like honestly, I feel like the kids that are like that are kind of just like awkward and don't have like many friends because it's not like a populated thing. Like it's not because it's not a normal thing for my age. Like you shouldn't be going around changing your gender. Like I mean there are kids that are like, gay and stuff, but that's fine. It's mainly just the kids that are transgender that like either you don't see a lot or like it's just kind of like strange, like that's not really a normal thing to us.
Tell her what happened at your annual pediatrician appointment.
Oh, so I was like at my pediatrician appointment, and they have like the questions that they have to ask you like
Mhm.
normally, and she had to step out of the room because she went to the bathroom, and she waited until she stepped out of the room and then asked me if I what I identified as and if I was transgender and if I had a preference of liking girls or boys or
She
both.
waits till I'm gone, the parent.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Wow.
I kind of looked. I looked at her and I was just like what?
Yeah, and I'm just like, "Really?" Like, you literally wait until the second I walk out, and then it's like, "Oh,
And
tell
then
me," you
what
know?
she told me after she said that too, she goes, "Whatever you answer, I do not have to tell your parents."
Yeah, I'm like, "What
That's
the hell?"
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so needless to say, we fired that doctor because 'cause I'm like, "I
She
don't
was
like
already
that."
very, like I did not like her because she was always just, like, weird, like, she would always make comments and stuff like that, I feel like.
Yeah. So, but do you feel like there's, like, a lot of kids that identify as, like, something else, or is it just kind of like
There
a
there is a girl at my school who identifies as a cat, and she wears cat ears every day. I don't know
Okay,
why.
what do you have to call her?
I don't even know. I haven't even talked to her, so I don't even know, but
does she,
I
like,
think
meow and stuff?
I think people just, like, call her by, like, her actual, like, name or whatever name she goes by, but she wears cat ears and, like, a cat tail and just, like, walks around school like that, and people will, like, mess with her, though, and, like, go up to her and start, like, meowing, and she'll literally, like, start hissing at people back, like, literally, I watched a girl the other day go up to her, and she, like, messed with her and meowed, and she was like and I was like, "What just happened?"
Do you have to have a litter box in the bathroom for her?
No.
Because I've literally heard of schools that are, like,
No,
requiring that.
there was a petition that kids were sending around like that to have litter boxes in school bathrooms, and then we were like, "Let's start feeding them cat food too and see how they like that, and then they can complain."
That's
But
This
there
is
crazy.
is literally you
crazy to
can look at
me.
my school dress code. I should screenshot it and send it to you. And it says, "No dog or cat collars." It's like the fact that they even had to add that is
Mhm.
just hilarious. Like,
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know, when we were younger, like, if you had a dog collar or something, that was like there was, like, a trend, but people didn't
It was punk
actually think
rock.
they were a dog, you know?
No, it was
Yeah,
like
it
a
was
yeah.
punk
like,
rock thing. Yeah,
yes. But now
yeah.
they, like, actually are like, "Oh, no, I'm a dog." And it's like, "What?"
Like,
There's
me and
I
my
I'm
friends,
s
we'll even, like, joke about this stuff. We'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I identify as, like, a helicopter now."
Yeah, crazy.
but they're enabling and encouraging this. I just can't, like, get on board with that, and I like, does she have friends that also
Honestly, she
identify as
doesn't really have a
pets?
lot of friends,
Well, there you
but she
go.
is, going out with this one kid who whoever her little, like, boyfriend friend thing is on the baseball team. He, like, lost all of his friends because he's friends with her.
Yeah, so, like, it's not like it's this cool thing that's, like,
Mhm.
trendy, at least not here, and again, we're in Florida, it's probably totally different in, like, Seattle, for example, but here it is, like, it's not cool, you know, you're gonna get bullied, and, like, most kids have no interest in sharing their pronouns and, like, stuff like that.
This is a very I'm sorry, this is a parenting issue.
Yeah,
It's a huge parenting issue. If you're okay with your child believing not only are they a one of the 200 genders that don't exist, but now your child identifies as an animal and you're okay
right.
with your kid going to school wearing cat ears and a cat tail, like,
So
you should be held criminally liable as a parent
this
for
is my opinion on it. I agree with you because I don't think it's the kid that's like mentally ill. I think it's probably the mother that is mentally ill and it's like that Munchausen's by
Mhm.
proxy, but
Yeah.
it's like they need to like have, you know, a check on like the what do you call it? The scale of like, oh, we're special, we're non-binary, we're it's like pandering or like, you
Yeah.
know, whatever. It's totally coming from the mom. And the reason I think that too is like I'm in these Facebook groups and it's always the moms that are like saying these stupid like liberal things. And in a lot of cases, the dad is nowhere to be found, or if he is in the picture, he's not like a strong masculine role model. He's just like kind of in the background, not saying anything.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the kids too that do that, it's because they have like stuff like mentally going on at home and they want to like make themselves feel like special or different but like really that's just making themselves weirder and they don't realize that. Like they think that if they do that, like it's gonna get them more attention, but they don't realize that the attention they're getting is not in a good way.
Well, and it's like when we were kids, if people were, dressing differently or whatever, it was like, it was no big deal. Like it was like, oh, it's a phase. But now you have adults that are like, oh, well, we might need to give you surgery and we might need to give you hormones. And they're like, you know what I mean? When it's like literally just a phase.
I
So,
was one of those kids. I went through those phases.
yeah.
I went through my punk phase, my goth
Mhm.
phase.
Yep.
Multiple parents were worried because of my phases, which are not even remotely extreme compared to what's happening today. But what happened? I grew up. I grew out of it.
Mhm.
That's what kids do. They wear different clothes, they try different things. But this is different. This is trying to change the mentality, and it's really messing with kids' heads. And I
Yeah.
think it's just a
Yeah.
completely different situation.
And I feel like even like 5 years ago, it was people saying like, "Oh, I had like a tomboy phase or I had like a
Mhm.
really girly phase." But I feel like now, like the kids nowadays are gonna be looking at it like, "Oh, I had a transgender phase." Like,
Yeah.
what?
And hopefully it's not permanent because if
Yeah,
they take these hormones or
yeah,
surgery, like, yeah, you can't grow out of that phase. That's permanent, you
No.
know? But the thing with her doctor asking her that really freaked me out because I'm like, my younger kids, if they started asking them questions, there is no, like, who knows what they would say? Amelia would probably be like, oh my God, I love boys. Like, yeah, I'm a, you know what I mean? Like, they don't get it. But I feel
yeah.
like we're in a society where people like are taking it seriously when a kid says something like that. And it's
Yes.
Yeah, I
It's
terrifying.
feel like there
scary.
needs to be like at least a age limit. Like you need to be like, I don't know, like 18 or like 16 or older to be able to make those decisions. Or I feel like even older than that. Like I feel like 18 should
You
be
can't
like
get
the
a
limit.
tattoo till you're 18. You should not be able to have
Yeah.
plastic surgery till you're
If
18.
you can't legally drink,
Yeah.
you should not be able to have plastic surgery. If you're not old enough to vote, if you're not old enough to smoke cigarettes, you should not be able to make
Yeah.
decisions about gender affirming care.
Well, if you're
Exactly.
if you're not allowed to vote and make the decision about which president you support, why should you be able to make a decision of what gender you want to be?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy, but like that's the world we're living in and I'm glad that it's not this big cool thing here because kids are influenced by their peers. And if it's a trendy
Absolutely.
thing, they're gonna try to fit in. You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah.
sure there are places in this country where it is cool or trendy and kids are just trying to like simply fit in and then parents like take it to a whole other level by affirming it, you know? Okay, so
Or having laws requiring them to affirm it. That to me
yeah.
is one of the craziest
Yeah.
things.
Well,
But
yeah,
anyway,
that's why I feel like it's a way for the government to take control of kids and
kids. Mhm.
parents lose their rights. And that
Yep.
is really scary and that's got to be a motive behind the whole thing. Um okay, so I've got to ask about the Willy Wonka movie cuz she went and saw this and she's telling me about it and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is totally like a symbolism for the Illuminati and trafficking and all kinds of stuff. Like there's like a whole conspiracy behind this movie that I think she uncovered.
Yeah, so basically what the movie is, it's like it starts off and there's these two like guys and they each have like a really big chocolate company and they're like the heads of like the whole thing. And there's like a third building there that's like empty because every other chocolate business has gone like out. And so like Willy Wonka is trying to like make that his business and they have this whole like underground tunnel system and they go through this church and you go and talk to the priest and you hand him like a chocolate and then he like sends you down into the underground thing. And
Is this not like the freaking Vatican?
and then it
Yes.
gets better. So then they like plan to like sabotage him. So they're like poisoning the food that he's feeding people, like the chocolate. So like it's making them like it made like a little girl like grow like a beard or like stuff like that. And so then like they end up shutting his thing down, and the police were like behind it trying to like arrest him. They basically like told him like, if you try to run a chocolate business, like we will arrest you. So then he like loses all his money and he has to go stay at this like bed and breakfast place, and there he doesn't know how to read though, because this was like, it took place like longer ago, and there was like this whole thing in like fine print, and they were like, the girl who was like working there, who was like maybe 10 years old, was like trying to warn him like to read the fine print, but like he didn't know how to read. So he goes and stays there, and they like charge him this like ridiculous amount of money that he doesn't have, and they're like, okay, well, you have to work for us since you like, until you can pay us back, and the amount, it's like gonna take him the rest of his life to pay back. So they send him down to this thing where they're all like washing clothes, and there's hundreds of people, not even hundreds, there's like not that much people down there, but they're all like stuck there basically.
Like
And
basically like child like slave
yeah, so
labor,
then like
and they're like keeping them captive.
the whole thing happens and blah blah blah, and then eventually like at the end of the movie they're able to escape and help the little girl have a better life. And one of the girls, she worked in like the phone thing, and they were able to like track down her mom, and her mom worked in this big huge library that was basically like the
Like the Vatican
Vatican.
library.
So I feel like the whole movie was like basically the Vatican. Like,
Yeah, so like when she saw this movie, she's telling me, she's like, there were some like weird things going
yeah,
on,
and
like these
honestly,
underground tunnels.
watching the movie, like it just didn't, like something did not feel right. Like it felt like they were trying to tell us something.
Yeah, so I, started looking at it, and surprisingly, like there's not that many people talking about it, but the people that are talking about it, they're trying to make it sound like these are like they're trying to like warn people about what's really happening in the industry
I feel like
with
all
children.
movies, like now, I feel like a lot of them are trying to like warn us about that stuff.
Warn us, or it's just conditioning, like
I was going to say, I
conditioning your
think they're
subconscious
conditioning
mind.
us,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
like
to accept it.
the
Mhm.
movies that the Obamas made, the Leave the World Behind, that was causing a lot of like stuff too with that.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so I have a little conspiracy theorist that I'm raising over here.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we covered like a lot of different topics, but I think it just shows that like not every young person is this far extreme progressive liberal, and I just feel like that gives me hope that maybe they don't have a grip on these kids as we think they do, like hopefully not. And I think a lot of kids are like smart enough to see what's happening. And I also feel like they're way more involved in politics than I ever was. Like I didn't even know who was running for president when I was her age.
That I was just about to ask that. I was going to say, Alexis, do you guys talk about politics at school at all?
Yeah, and there was actually, I have a teacher who, they're not supposed to talk about this. And he basically told us how he's like super left, super liberal, and how no one at like his church wants to be friends with him because they're all super like big Trump fans. And we were all just kind of like, I wonder why they don't want to be friends with you. Like,
Yeah, and I think like maybe because of social media and just celebrities, like they just seem to be way more aware of what's going on than I ever was. Like I didn't even think about politics when I was a
Me
kid.
neither.
I had to ask my parents, like, who do you vote for? Like I didn't know what a Democrat or a Republican was.
Mhm.
And I feel like she knows a
yeah.
lot about
They do
politics.
a thing at the school now, and they've done it for the past like couple years. I think since like fifth grade or fourth grade, maybe, where they do like a mock voting, and you basically, they have like the actual presidents and like government, and they have you like vote who you would actually like vote for.
I think that's good.
But do they try to sway your opinion in any of the process?
No, they just like have the
Okay.
different presidents. They don't give us any like background. They're just like, vote who you think should be like the president. It'll have like the name, and then under it like Republican or Democrat. And I would always just vote for the Republican ones, because for a while I didn't really know who was
Yeah.
president and stuff. I feel like that didn't really become like a topic that people talked about until I was in about sixth grade, which is when COVID started.
Well, I think it's Trump. Like, I didn't care about politics
I
until
didn't
Trump
either.
came along. Like, I was totally in the dark, didn't care, didn't want to know. And I think he like really changed the game because a lot of people started paying attention.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't like him.
Yeah,
Because then
I
we
can
ask
definitely
questions.
say, I can definitely say at 14, had you asked me who the president was, I probably could not have answered that question.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I was like totally oblivious.
I didn't care. Yeah.
So it is interesting. Different times that we're in.
Mhm.
All right. Well, should we close this out? Do you want to do your Kamala Harris impression?
Oh yeah. Hold on. We did it, Joe. You're gonna be the next president of the United States.
She always does that. Like whenever we're doing something, she'll be like, "We did it. We did it, Joe."
I have
Oh.
to say, Alexis, you are incredibly articulate. I feel that you absolutely put me to shame.
Well, maybe she'll have a future in podcasting. Who knows?
Yeah.
But thanks for
Yeah.
coming on and giving us that perspective. And yeah, I think I don't know, it gives me a lot of hope for our future
Yes.
and changes what the media is feeding us, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you.
All
Let's go,
right.
Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Okay, well, everyone have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Friday. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.